Hello everybody, welcome back to another session of the Compliance Coach. Today we talk about KYC. You think, know your client? I know about that. No, it's know your colleague. And why is that so important? Stay with me in the triple three, meaning number one is 3 facts why banks should switch from a client-oriented to a colleague-focused approach. Number 2 is what you should know about your colleagues or future team members when they're joining. And 3 is what are 3 simple steps to change that mind and bringing colleagues into the spot. My name is Ralf Ebert and I'm telling you as well the truth about Simon Sinek's approach when he said building a strong culture is what builds a strong organization. McKinsey report in 2022 on the human capital at work said it more even clearly. The value of an experience or the most important resource in economy or organization is the human capital portfolio. So stay with me on this session. My name is Ralf Ebert, 20 years of experience in compliance and senior global roles with private and international banks. I'm here for you to make things accessible. So stay with me and thinking and impacting compliance differently. So let's talk about why should a bank switch from a customer into a colleague-oriented approach. And don't get me wrong, it's not instead, but it's a balanced approach between two of them. Because the client experience is very much related to the internal processes that are running. And what is the most demanding element in the moment? It's digital transformation. You name it. Meaning of how I create my onboarding processes, how I will redesign the communication channels with my client, how a client can give the instructions to the bank, and so on. What does it mean? It means not only the right skill set of the compliance or any kind of colleague working in banking, but the right mindset and the cultural understanding, being part of the game, invest yourself in dynamic situations, changing elements in terms of providing new solutions and as well profitability to the bank. Now, the truth is about transformation processes that it is made for people, but it's made with people. And the right mindset and the supporting cultures are normally the most important elements to make it then as well to the success. You might have seen as well of one of my last videos when it was about how compliance can boost business. You find as well this kind of contribution to this stance. The second reason why a bank should focus more on colleagues than on customers is that the human error is still the highest risk factor in banking. Why I'm telling that? Those of you who have watched my last video on conduct risk and what is the impact, they know it already, is that whenever it comes to the setup of organizations, you can have the best technologies, the best processes, the best strategies in place, but you need to manage as well the colleagues and the human capital portfolio which is behind that. And then we talk about cultural influences of who is working with whom together, ethical and ethnical behaviors, which of course play a very important role in how misconduct or conduct or an ethic behavior is conceived. Then we have behavioral biases, meaning sometimes overconfidence, and we saw that as well in some of the biggest challenges and misconducts over the last years, that people were in this kind of situation where they wanted to get over the limits by doing so. Here as well, meaning emotional intelligence is very important, and the more your colleague is aligned with the strategy and shows the ethical behavior that you want, the more you will contribute as well to a long-standing profitability of the bank. And the third factor is why you should focus on your colleagues is a very interesting one, because colleagues in banking are a very highly demanded population. Already we saw in the 2023 Cornerstone study, which roughly said that 90% of all banks are struggling to find the right talents, regardless of what has been there and in what kind of field they were searching. So by investing in colleagues, in their progression, education, as well to get them to the next level and creating loyalty and retention, you will get as well a better outcome on the customer side. And in addition to that, whenever you have models where you value your colleagues in a crowded marketplace, you can gain a sufficient factor of being recognized by other individuals that you might be the right place to go, because the banking sector is very competitive, as we all know. And so we saw that already in one of my last videos in terms of how the fintechs have taken a very important stake in the young talent research in banking. So as well, whatever you invest in your colleagues is an investment that ultimately comes back as a profitable situation for your client. Now, in the second part, we're looking about 3 facts that we should know about our current and future colleagues. And as you know, I always love to support my arguments by studies. And here we have the first one. Normally colleagues like permanent progression. In the Finextra report that has been done, in particular on the human capital portfolio, it was stated that more than 90% of the participants stated that permanent progression is essential for the job. So what does it mean? In terms of offering that in the banking sector, it means already from the beginning that you do not need to know of what your colleague is looking for. Is it a higher salary? Is it a higher position? Is it a title? Is it a new project? And so on. And we come at the end of this video to the situation of how you can assess and evaluate that in the most easiest and most comprehensive way. The same, interestingly enough, in the famous report from McKinsey that I already quoted in the beginning, said that 90% of the risk and compliance functions, they did not come from the risk and compliance function. What does that mean is that we have a high diversity on the side of compliance. And even in this McKinsey report, it was stated that even though the people are applying for compliance and risk jobs, does not mean that they want to stay. They see more over compliance and risk as a wonderful platform, career-wise, to take the next step rather than being a final destination. So I think we have as well to take that into consideration whenever somebody joins our workforce on compliance or in the banking sector. Number 2 is what you should know is that people are looking for meaningful work. It looks a little bit like Jay Shetty, but it's another McKinsey report that has been published in 2021, where 70% of the respondents told that their individual sense of purpose is the most important part, and that meaningful work was especially among the younger respondents of that survey expressed as the most important part for choosing the right job. So what does it mean? I think we in compliance, we have a very nice advantage in that one, because we're doing purposeful work at the very end for the bank, but as well for the client. And if you don't know what I'm meaning about, have a look in my other video on how to boost as a good compliance business, and you will know what I'm talking about. But meaning in terms of normally we're providing for organizations stability, safety, risk management, etc. So the purposeful or meaningful work is something that we can offer in compliance quite in an easy way. And number 3 is young talents in particular in the hiring process. They need support. What do I mean? Meaning most of them apparently feel comfortable when it comes about their skill set and the right where they work in terms of job description, that they're feeling okay. They might feel a little bit more differently when it comes to what is expected from their emotional intelligence part. And that applies in particular for the so-called Generation Z. And what does it mean for you or for us as a leader in compliance? Meaning providing purposeful support activities for them, whether it's mentoring, whether it's permanently accompanying them on their roles in terms of really focusing on this kind of emotional intelligence part rather than on the skill set part. So this is number 3 when it comes to what do you know or what do you really need to focus when it comes to your colleague. So in this third part, we're looking on 3 elements to establish, to create on an easy manner the right mindset and skill set to get a sustainable know your colleague in place. I benefit a little bit on my experience, and for instance, when I took over a quite important team of a private bank, roughly 70 people, I invested roughly 1 hour with every person just talking about the professional situation, but leaving enough place as well to whatever wanted to be discussed, that is being a topic of discussions. And I learned a lot from personal elements over the career path, sport events, and so on. And that gives you then a very good view in terms of who is the person in front of you, what are the mindset, what is the skill set, but as well what are the expectations of that. And then that should not be only proposed in the beginning, but what I do very often is the so-called walk the corridor. Just especially if you have larger teams to take care of, just have a little bit of a view in terms of what is happening with people, where are they at work, and just interact with them on a non-informal way, not organized, just by walking through the larger offices and just talk to people, and you will see very quickly what comes back on this one. And last but not least, as well in terms of providing a special time, is the walking bilateral meetings. What do I mean by that is taking people out sometimes out of their comfort zone and getting with them around the block, outside, near the lake, near the water, in the streets, and then you will find that they change as well their behavior, and they change as well the discussion topics. And that is something I really value for myself in terms of finding out what is really in the moment on the mind of my team members and how can I support them. Now, the second one where I can only just give a good example of how you can get access to people was when I took over a quite important team of another private bank. And after having conducted these kind of individual meetings, I stepped into the town hall, 70 people looking at me, and I wrote on the board KYC. And you can imagine people were not quite impressed, like, oh, your boss is coming, and now the only thing that he talks about is know your client, really? And then I did the same as I did in the beginning of the video. I transformed it into know your colleague. And then I give them 3 examples of people who were either creating or writing a novel, of managing a motorsport sports team, or running the 100 meters in a very fast time, to find out who they are. And that is in terms of generating this kind of genuine interest in who is your colleague in front of you, who is the colleague walking and working on the next floor or in the next office. That kind of element, if you achieve that, then you have already done the important step. And we talked about in the beginning on the very important part on emotional intelligence and in intercultural dimensions. When I was in Asia, for instance, I found out quickly 2 elements which were very helpful. Number 1 is whenever you are invited to get part in the weekend in terms of games like paintball or whatsoever, that really gives you access to people, because it's an icebreaker element where you are taken completely out of your normal working zone in the office. As you're the boss, they are your team, and you have the opportunity to discover people in a complete different environment and with complete different reactions. I have a lot of photos on this one, so certainly something to be remembered. The same approach is when it comes to where I'm always interested in, is in terms of how people are spending their weekends. What did they do? In what kind of mood they're coming back? But the question asked in that sense could be as well taken as, oh, your boss is doing an interrogation of what you have doing. And so I changed that then quickly to a complete different question, which was like, in which restaurant did you had lunch or dinner over the weekend? Very good impact, I have to say. Very bad impact in the sense that I was provided with a lot of TripAdvisors, recognitions, and recommendations, and the expectation was that I was dining and lunching in the same restaurants. And I can tell you, my colleagues had a very good choice as well when it came to the pricing. but it opened me as well a new ground to have access to these people. So that, I think, is in essence the three elements to get quickly the know your colleague into place in your organization. So thank you again for joining me on this quite short episode on the know your colleague. I think in essence, organizations are made by humans for humans, meaning, especially in the banking sector, it's for clients but made or set up with colleagues. So I think our purpose is to create the golden bridge between client and colleague by taking colleagues with the right skill set, of course, but moreover looking on the right mindset, the emotional intelligence of how they're built in terms of creating sustainable success and profitability to the bank. Simon Sinek would certainly say, play the infinite game within the banking sector, and that I think is one of the elements that we should look for. The same, I think, applies when it comes to the so-called circle of safety or circle of trust. Clients are searching for this one in particular when they're getting client of a certain bank, because they are looking for the reputation being protected. And the same applies to colleagues. Colleagues as well want to have protection and safety, being well represented by their leaders, and as well in difficult times have the possibility to express themselves in doing so. Whatever then is invested in your colleagues is a direct investment as well in the client. And I think basically and ultimately it is in terms of investing and cultivating cohesive and resilient workforce, which in particular in difficult times in the banking sector is more than important to get, and as well will have a very important impact on productivity and the overall success of the organization. So that was it for this time. Thank you again for joining this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Looking forward to see you soon on this channel, thinking and impacting compliance differently.